All right, this morning we're talking about sedition on Firearms Friday. Got a bunch of deep state Democrats who claim to be veterans, and I say claim to be veterans. Okay, so they all apparently they all served in some form or another. And guys, as a veteran who took the oath and takes it seriously, it aggravates the shit out of me when I see veterans go Democrat. Right? Look, let me say this in no uncertain terms. A veteran who votes Democrat has completely lost the plot. The worldview really is that simple. And I'm going to make that case in no uncertain terms right here by just letting you see what they have to say.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris Deluzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community
who take risks each day
to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
like us. You all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law
or our Constitution.
We know this is hard,
and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
the Army,
or Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
And know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
the American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws,
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
So, treason, I see Dad says, Sergeant Major says they're all traitors. You know what, old man? I'd love, if you're free, I will send you the link right now. If you want to pop in, I'd love to have you. So, I think I can do this. Damn it. All right, bear with me. This is not technically treason. It's sedition, and there is a difference, and it's an important difference. But treason is not, it should not be dismissed entirely. Now, here's the important difference. What these Democrats are doing in this case is they are attempting to fracture our military into partisan coalitions. What they're doing specifically, and this is why I say this is sedition and not treason, technically, what they're doing is they're trying to cause U.S. soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and spacemen, they're trying to create a circumstance, an atmosphere where U.S. military members are opening fire on one another. They're not just trying to get military members. They're not just trying to get soldiers killed. They're trying to get soldiers killing each other. In fact, what they really want, and they've made it very, very clear, is they want Donald Trump and every Republican they can manage dead in the street. They do. Now, in his response, the Donald has committed an error. It's a minor error, but it is important in matters of this nature to be precise. So I'm going to get back to how sedition can be treason in this case in just a second. But first, let me get to where's the come on, damn it. There's so many of these things. Trump put out a tweet, or a truth rather, that said sedition is punishable by death. It's not. Sedition is punishable by imprisonment. Here it is. Seditious behavior punishable by death. Right? And then this guy retweeted him, said, hang them, George Washington would. Yes, George Washington would hang them. Seditious behavior punishable by death. Under the law, seditious behavior is punishable by incarceration. But how does this rise? How could this rise to the level of treason? We're talking about Democrats here. Of course, the Democrats are losing their mind over Donald Trump saying seditious behavior punishable by death. And we've got this video out from Mark Kelly. Oh, of course, I have a shitload pulled up, guys. Let me find this one. Mark Kelly. Jesus, what's happening here? We're talking about the Democrats who are basically they have a long history of conducting illegal activity against President Trump, up to and including absolutely clear treason. Let's not forget, Mark Milley said explicitly, and apparently did, make phone calls to China to specifically for the purpose of informing them on U.S. military activity, right? He made phone calls to China, to the Chinese Communist Party, to deliver to them highly classified, sensitive information about the activities of the United States military. And he explicitly stated that he did it in order to stop Donald Trump from doing things that he didn't agree with. Now, I don't care what that thing is. Pitt Danny points out, when interviewed, Slotkin could not name an illegal order. Yeah, so they're doing this thing. Okay, let me get back to Milley for a second. I don't care what the thing is that he doesn't agree with. I don't care if it's nuking China. If it's not a crime, it's a military order. Right? In this context. Now, it's important to understand the language of Article 92, which of course deals with the question of refusing illegal orders. And to be clear, as a service member, as someone who's taken the oath of office, you have a duty under the Uniform Code of Military Justice to refuse to follow an illegal order. And that's something that we're told over and over again, but it's never quite adequately explained. Dad, I see you've joined. You can pop in anytime you're... I see what happened. I see why I thought Dad had already joined. You should be able to... Yeah, okay, Dad, try your... Okay, I see what's happening. There we go. There. Okay. No joy on Rumble stream. Okay. Sorry about that. We'll figure it out later, I guess. Anyway, what I was saying about the refusing illegal orders. Yes, it is your duty to refuse illegal orders, right? But, under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, Article 92, service members must obey lawful orders. Failure to obey a lawful order can lead to serious punishment, including court-martial, right? And a court-martial can end with you being dishonorably discharged. And for the civilians out there who don't understand this, that is legally almost identical with being convicted of a felony, right? A dishonorable discharge isn't just, well, you were a shitty soldier, we got rid of you. No, you can't vote. You can't carry a firearm. You are in every way that matters to your life a felon. And hey, let's be fair. In theory, it should take what is essentially felonious activity to merit a dishonorable discharge. But there's a key qualifier. The order must be lawful. If an order is manifestly illegal, that language right there, that's not just colorful language. That's not just a pretty adjective, right? Or adverb. It's not just a pretty adverb, flowery language, etc. That is a very specific term of art, right? That is specific legal jargon in this case. Service members not only may refuse it, they have a duty to do so. Obeying an illegal order can expose a service member to criminal liability. Now, this is all, of course, that's all, of course, in reference to the Accord, with the frickin' Nazis and I was just following orders. The treaty after World War II. Anyway, they were tried, and we said, hey, no. I was just following orders is not a good reason to shove people into chemical murder showers. Okay? But that manifestly illegal. Just because you disagree with an order, because it's a bad tactical decision, etc. Nuremberg, thank you, Olson. Just because you disagree with an order does not mean that it is an unlawful order. Give you an example. I was conducting operations in Saint-Gervais, and me and my guy had absolute Loctite, solid intel. We knew where a bad guy was about to be. And when I say about to be, I mean, I went into the Tactical Operations Center and I said to the first sergeant, the commander, hey, I need one platoon right now. They need to be ready to walk out the front gate in 30 minutes. We'll be gone for an hour and a half, and I'm going to come back with one commander, 2 lieutenants, right? And a couple of logistics guys who are transporting IED material right now. I know where they're about to meet. We're going to wrap them all up. And I had this shithead colonel come in and say, no, we're not doing that because I've already got a plan. Right? And I'll throw a little shade here. This was right after the 10th Mountain Division came in to replace the 101st, and they were an absolute shit show. Every commander or senior non-commissioned officer I dealt with that was part of 10th Mountain in Afghanistan was an absolute fucking shit show. But anyway, they said, no, Sergeant Lowry, we don't want you to go wrap up a half a dozen or so bad guys in an hour and a half right now, because we have this big, elaborate, complex operation with multiple pieces of armor and all this that are going to go and grab this one bomb maker who was one of the guys I was about to pick up, to grab this one bomb maker because we figured out where his house is. And we're going to go to his house and arrest him there. And I look at the maps that the guys have. I'm like, you're telling me that instead of wrapping up a half a dozen bad guys or more right now, no trouble. I'm serious as a heart attack. I'm going to sweep it. I've seen me do it 1,000 times. I'm going to sweep in there with one platoon. We're going to zip tie a half a dozen bad motherfuckers to each other, and we're going to frog march their asses back in the gate, and I'm going to grunt at them until they start pointing at maps and telling me shit. It works every single time. I got medals for it. They put my name on a fucking trophy for it. And instead, the thing you want to do is you want to take an armor, a company of fucking armor, park it on the wrong side of a river, walk across the river with my $1 million kit on my back and try to keep it dry so that we could walk 400 meters across an open field with clear sight lines to approach a fucking IED maker's house? Let me tell you something about Article 92. That's not illegal. Lawful order. That was a lawful order. Now, luckily, we didn't lose any soldiers. We did, however, lose literally all of my targets. So, my point there is when you're talking about refusing military orders, lawful orders, you have to be talking about manifestly unlawful. So you're saying things like your commander says, "Hey, soldier, I want you to come over here and murder this person." Now I'm going into a little hyperbole here, but essentially what you have to have, what you have to have is the commander, the NCO, whoever yes, Aaron Olson lost all the targets. Yeah. Because they let the rest of the half a dozen of them get away because they had already planned this big elaborate operation for a couple days later. And yes, Pitt Danny, that was under the Obama administration. So anyway. Yes, Sergeant Major, that is correct. That is correct. When in contact with the enemy. Let me clarify something real quick, though, old man. We were not in contact with the enemy when we had this conversation. I had eyes on the enemy and was able to engage them and eliminate them, and the commanders chose not to eliminate the enemy. Uncle Steve, yes, this was definitely some DEI brass. But maybe not the kind you're thinking of. And yes, when in contact with the enemy, the unit must work as a team. If one member of the team does not do their work, the mission may fail and soldiers die. There's no time for a soldier to decide an order. That is correct. But that is correct when in contact with the enemy. This was a situation where it was my job to make determinations on what intelligence was actionable. We had valuable, actionable intelligence, and the brass chose to ignore it so that they could pursue a much more expensive operation, which was a complete and utter failure. I mean, a complete and utter failure. There was damage to equipment. We didn't lose any soldiers, but there was damage to equipment. It was an absolute shit show. Basically, I told them, here's what's going to happen. And the thing I told them that was going to happen is exactly what happened. As soon as soldiers came up out of the river and had 400 meters of open field to cross, the guy that we were there to grab jumped on a motorcycle and rode away. We had to watch him ride away. So that, anyway. But my point was, as psychotic and ridiculous and stupid as that situation was, I still had to go along. I had to follow the order. Right. And if I'm being fair, I could have pushed a little harder. I could have gone over that commander's head, but I didn't. And I kind of regret it, but that's beside the point. Because the point I'm getting back to is the manifestly unlawful order. And they give examples here. Not every questionable order counts. Courts have held that for an order to be manifestly illegal, its unlawfulness must be clear and obvious. Right? That's why I used the slightly hyperbolic example of a command level officer, NCO, what have you, giving an order like, I want you to murder that civilian. Okay, orders target civilians, orders to falsify official documents, orders to commit crimes such as theft or assault. Now, let me bring this one back a little bit. The orders to falsify official documents, that's something that happens all the time. All the time. In teeny tiny little ways, right? You got a good soldier and he comes up 2 push-ups short on his PT test. And you just say, you know what? Put him 1 over. Right? You might have the first sergeant look at him and say, you know what? This is a great soldier. This is a great soldier. And I know that he's been absolutely beat to shit in training this week. He's worn out. He's tired. This is not a good day for him. And I've seen plenty of situations where every reasonable person will look at the situation and they'll say to themselves, okay, very technically, this guy missed passing his PT test by a push-up. So yeah. We'll pencil whip him 2, get him by, because we all know that this guy in every other PT test does 15 or 20 push-ups more than what he's required to do, right? And no reasonable person is going to look at that situation where you got a rock-solid soldier who's a superstar everywhere, does fine or even great on his PT test, has a bad day, and you cut him a little slack and do him a favor. But in a very technical sense, let's say I'm the sergeant doing the count, and I count 39 when he needed 40, and the first sergeant elbows me and says, hey, Lowry, just cut him, slip him 2. Very technically, I have a duty to refuse that order because that is an illegal order to falsify a document. Now, I bring that example up because that's something that happens all the time. Now, where it happens, like I've just described, not uncommon, not absolutely rampant, but y'all remember that conversation Pete Hegseth had with all the big brass a couple weeks ago? That's where a lot of it happens. You get up in the high ranks, and it's like, listen, sir, we understand that you have to spend a lot of time at that big, beautiful desk in your office signing paperwork and making decisions and stuff. So we're just going to go ahead and forgive your 30% body fat. We know we can't get a tape around your fat ass, but we're gonna put you down at just squeaking under the line, so you don't have to worry about it. That happens a lot. That happens a hell of a lot. Hopefully Hegseth's about to solve that problem, but I would be. Sergeant Major says never on my watch. You never let it happen, old man. But I would be amazed if you told me that you never saw it happen in someone else's command. Right. In fact, I'd be amazed. I'd be more amazed if you were to say that you never saw a soldier about whom you had that suspicion just on looking at him. Right. I saw a lot of soldiers, especially above E6. Not a lot of sergeant majors. I'll give you that one, old man. Not a lot of sergeant majors, because that's a very narrow category. But 6, 7, and 8s, I saw a lot of them where you just look at them and you know, okay, this one's getting a freebie. This one's getting a pass, right? But that's what you get. So anyway, the old Donald calling it sedition. So saying sedition punishable by death. No, treason is punishable by death. That's Article 3, Section 3. And the main difference between treason and sedition, treason is taking deliberate action. It's providing aid and support to the enemy. Right. So treason is like what Mark Milley did, calling China to give them a heads up on military actions by the United States. The idea that Mark Milley has not been hanged for treason should be it should be offensive to your patriotic spirit. He belongs at the end of a rope. Right? The evidence is incontrovertible. It is public record. He should have been arrested, convicted, tried, convicted, and executed. It is beyond a benefit of a doubt that he committed treason against the United States of America while serving in uniform. Yes, put him at the end of a rope. That's not just my patriotic fervor. That is the law. And I don't have to go to U.S. 18 Criminal Code section, blah, 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 blah. No. U.S. Constitution, Article 3, Section 3. There is a reason it is the only crime that is explicitly outlined in the Constitution, because it is the most serious crime. Treason is a more serious crime than rape, than murder, than kidnapping, than arson. Because every time a person commits actual treason, the victim, potentially up to and including the entire catastrophic collapse and death, is the country. Right? The mortally threatened victim of treason is always and everywhere the entire population of the betrayed body. These Democrats calling for sedition, these are all big pro-China people, big pro-Ukraine people. Right? And I want to share with you guys the article that I posted about this on X yesterday. We'll go through this real quick because I think it's worth understanding what these guys are actually talking about. Or I'm sorry, not what these guys are actually talking about, but who they actually are. So the 6 Democrats telling troops to refuse illegal orders have a history that they'd prefer you forget. I wrote this article yesterday. Here's what they don't want you to remember. Alyssa Slotkin, Chrissy Houlihan, and Jason Crow took office in early 2019, right as the Mueller investigation was collapsing under its own weight. Instead of demanding accountability for the FBI's documented FISA abuses and political manipulation, they leaned into the narrative and used it as fuel. Slotkin and Houlihan went on to form Task Force Sentry, explicitly citing the Mueller report as justification for new federal controls over disinformation and social media behavior. The same censorship pipeline later used to bury the Hunter Biden laptop story. Right? I want you guys to understand this. These 6 Democrats have been explicitly they've been working full-time, nonstop for a decade to undermine Donald Trump as president and the Constitution of the United States to your explicit, intentional, and preferred detriment. They hate you and want to see you dead. And when I say that, that's not hyperbole, right? We're gonna hear the arguments, the criticisms from the left. Oh, Donald Trump saying that crimes which could be punished by death should be punished by death is using inflammatory language to incite violence. Okay. Charlie Kirk, dead. Donald Trump, attempted assassination at least 3 times. Right? Brett Kavanaugh, attempted assassination. The Summer of Love. The Black Panthers. The Weather Underground. I did a deep dive on this. The history of the Democrat Party is not violence. It is organized political terrorism. It's not just scattered incidental violence here and there. Right? You want to look for violence that was inspired by the right wing. You find lone wolves. You find one guy that goes crazy and takes a swing at some government institution. And right, so okay, you got the Oklahoma City bomber, and there's an argument that he's right wing. It's but you cannot point to a massive organized right wing terrorist organization. And when you point to the massive organized left-wing terror organizations, they all have one very important thing in common. They're directly funded by the Democrats themselves. They're funded by individual Democrat politicians. Often they are funded through things like bail funds and the like by the party itself, by the National Party itself. And they're funded through the same backers that fund the Democrats generally. Right? It's similar to the problem we have of political organizations in this country that I've talked about before. You know, on the right, you have organizations like the NRA, et cetera, the NRA, the various gun organizations, pro-life organizations, things like that. And here's the thing. None of those organizations are taxpayer funded. The NRA is funded exclusively by its membership. You buy a membership to the NRA, and that funds their lobbying efforts. And yes, they engage in political activity. They lobby congressmen and senators for political action. And that's funded by the people who join the organization for the purpose of getting that funding done. But then you go to the left. Planned Parenthood is directly funded by U.S. taxpayer dollars. That means I fund the NRA and Planned Parenthood involuntarily. Right? A Democrat that doesn't join the NRA, does not fund lobbying for legislation they're not interested in, but they do fund legislation that they are interested in, whether they choose to or not. You will be very hard-pressed to find a conservative organization that gets U.S. taxpayer dollars into its funding rolls. And you will be very hard-pressed to find a Democrat lobbying organization that is not directly funded. And it's a big money laundering mechanism, right? The Democrats send our U.S. tax dollars to Planned Parenthood and the like, and then Planned Parenthood and the like donate money to the political campaigns. And it just runs on a never-ending cycle of interest and money laundering. so that there's always money. They're basically just moving a huge pot of money back and forth, right? Oh, by the way, all of the universities go in that bucket. They get U.S. taxpayer funding, and they donate to Democrats. And you will find it very difficult to find an organization on the right that does that. Oh, well, what about the weapons manufacturers? Oh, no, they fund Democrats and Republicans, and they get U.S. taxpayer funding from that. And yes, Danny, the money is fungible. Sergeant Major says the NRA doesn't do a very good job of lobbying, but I am a lifelong member. Yeah, me too. I am disenchanted enough with the NRA that I won't ever give them another penny, but I'm not so mad at them that I'm going to go out of my way to figure out how to revoke my lifelong membership. So anyway, back to the point about these people. They have all been actively working to conduct sedition, and essentially they've been involved in a coup against the U.S. government since Donald Trump was elected the first time. Slotkin and Houlihan went on to form Task Force Sentry, explicitly citing the Mueller report as justification for new federal controls over disinformation and social media behavior, the same censorship pipeline that later used to bury the Hunter Biden laptop story. They should be in jail. Slotkin and Houlihan right there, they should be in jail for election interference. At the barest minimum, they should not be eligible to hold any office, any elected office in the U.S. ever again, just because they were explicitly, this is not a personal opinion. The Hunter Biden laptop story was one of several factors, any one of which would have made the difference in the 2020 election. Crow went even further. Not only did he vote to impeach Trump twice, he served as a House impeachment manager, literally the face of the partisan prosecution. So Slotkin voted for both impeachment. Houlihan voted for both impeachments. Crow, impeachment manager, prosecutor on the House team. Mark Kelly voted to convict Trump in the Senate trial. These are all like career Trump antagonists. And while Maggie Goodlander wasn't yet a member of Congress, she certainly, excuse me, I need to caffeinate my tongue so it can keep up with the rest of my mouth. And while Maggie Goodlander wasn't yet a member of Congress, she served on the House Judiciary Committee's Oversight Council team during the first impeachment. That means she helped build the legal case that weaponized impeachment for political ends. Half of the people in this video literally built their careers on declaring Trump's orders illegitimate. Now they're lecturing troops about illegal orders. Spare us. The Carter Page FISA warrants, proven fraudulent by the DOJ Inspector General, were the real example of government officials abusing power and violating constitutional rights. Not one of these 6 demanded accountability. Not one of them demanded reform. Not one of them even admits it happened. But now they want to position themselves as the guardians of lawful conduct in government. None of the 6 signed the notorious October 2020 letter in which 51 former intel officers falsely claimed the Hunter Biden laptop had all the classic hallmarks of Russian disinformation. But every single Democrat in this video enjoyed the political cover that letter provided. The letter justified censorship, killed negative press, and interfered with the election far more than any foreign troll farm ever did. Slotkin and Houlihan's Task Force Sentry framework, built on the Russian hoax, fed directly into the same political culture that allowed that lie to take root. Goodlander's connections inside the DOJ and the Biden National Security Circle only reinforced the pattern, the same cluster of insiders policing information, controlling narratives, and protecting their own, right? And I put some time into this article, guys. So if y'all, I would say go check it out. Go on X and go to the Brushfire Mind and read the whole article. I won't labor through the whole thing on you this morning. It is what is that, about 2,000 words maybe? But the point is that every single one of these Democrats that is illegally Now, here's where they're committing. Here's where they're trying to skirt the criminality of it. You'll note in that video, they never said which order is illegal. Instead, what they're doing is some Democrats are out there saying, the deployment of the National Guard in this place or this place is illegal. It's not. It's categorically not. It would be illegal for him to send them in and start enforcing civil codes and various laws, conducting law enforcement activity. The president absolutely 100% has the authority to station National Guard at federal installations to protect federal property amid civil unrest. There's not even a question. There's no gray area here, right? It's not like he's, we're not asking the question, should the drone pilot that murdered Anwar al-Awlaki under Obama's direct orders be held accountable for refusing to refuse Obama's clearly illegal order? We're not asking that question. A question that has a clear answer. No. There's no confusion. For the last 6 months, Democrats have been saying it's illegal for Donald Trump to do X, Y, and Z. Right? You can even look at all the universal injunctions. There have been more universal injunctions filed against Donald Trump than not any other president in history, than all other presidents combined. And that's not across the entire breadth of Donald Trump's 1.5 administrations. That's in the first 6 months of Donald Trump's second administration. There were more universal injunctions filed against him than all other presidents combined. That's huge. There's a reason the Supreme Court had to step in and say, no, this is not a thing. This is not a thing. You can't say we found an immigrant that we think is pretty, and so Donald Trump is not allowed to deport anybody ever. What? No. That's not how any of this works. Right? Democrats, I know you Democrats, you got up in arms, you got pissed off when ICE went in and raided your pot farms and took away the child slaves that you had growing your drugs. But that's not a good reason to say you need to bring the human trafficking, drug dealing, hostile foreign invader, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, back to our country and set him loose on our streets. No. It doesn't work. The fact that you want your foreign child slaves, the fact that you want your 7, 8, and 10-year-old slave labor picking your illicit pharmaceuticals, your fucking drugs, is not a good reason to bring a human trafficker back to this country. In fact, it sounds to me like a good reason to keep and bear arms. Because the citizen, the civilian, the armed man, right? Women should be armed because they should take their personal safety and security seriously. Men must be armed because you have a divine obligation to be a dangerous man capable of great violence, who is bridled by discipline and decency, but prepared always to be the rough man who does violence on behalf of those who cannot. So yes, ladies, you should carry a firearm in your purse. Men, if you leave the house without a firearm, you might as well leave your nuts on the table next to it. Sergeant Major says, don't forget the children who pick regular fruit and vegetables. Yeah, there's a lot of slave labor there too, but the one that the Democrats really got their panties in a twist over recently was a bunch of child slaves working on a pot farm in particular. That was about 2 months ago. That was a very big news item. Okay, guys, it's 8:15. I need to get on the road in just a minute here. And that was your safety brief. Ladies, buy a gun, learn to use it, learn to carry it correctly, take your personal safety and security seriously. Gentlemen, it is your responsibility to recognize evil in the world and be prepared to unbridle your well-disciplined danger and solve it before it can cause legitimate harm, serious harm, to those you care about. Life, liberty, and property, baby. So, Patrick says, if you want to be accurate, you should have a firearm within arm's reach at all times. Yeah, I don't know how many of you watching the show can relate to this, but every now and then I still wake up in a blind panic because I'm not hugging a rifle when my eyes come open. But that's just part of having been there. I do always have a weapon in arm's reach. That's just that's just a thing, y'all. I'm not wearing one right now because I'm in the studio in pajama pants. But please believe, if suddenly I hear some squawking outside and I pop the door open to see there's a mountain lion getting after my chickens, I'm not going to have to find something to solve that problem. So thanks for watching this morning, guys. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow night for the deep dive. No show tomorrow morning. It's Saturday, but tomorrow night for the deep dive. We love you, and we'll see you then.